because I started my life over here, standing outside the tea bar on the corner of Plough Lane and Durnsford. Were you next to me?
No,
you owe me a bovril. Now, I'd also like to say a thank you to a couple of people who never get a mention and never get anybody saying thank you to them. Dave McKnight and Tim Hillier have done an awful lot of research on this site and also provided, particularly Dave McKnight, a lot of memorabilia which is appropriate to this occasion and to others. And I think a thank you to them is certainly appropriate from me at this particular time. My association with Plough Lane goes back to the season 1955-56. I realise my boyish good looks make that rather
I'm not agreeing.
rather unlikely, but I actually come from Hersham, and my team, Walton and Hersham, were playing in a replay cup tie, Surrey Senior Cup I think, 17th of December 1955, Wimbledon won 2-0. I was so impressed I couldn't go to all the away matches for either team, I just couldn't afford it. But what I could do is go to wherever fixtures allowed, one Walton home match, following Saturday a Wimbledon home match. Imagine my delight in 1974 when Alan brought most of the Walton boys over to Wimbledon. It was a regular from 1958. I saw a team put together with real talent, and by 1963 they won the FA Amateur Cup for the first time in our history. With Ennie Reynolds, and this is Reynolds Gate, this is what this is called, with Ennie Reynolds scoring 4 headed goals, we beat Sutton United 4-2. With us today are some of that victorious team. England international and former Dons skipper John Martin. And the man who climbed the royal box, England international captain, Wimbledon captain, Mr. Roy Law. Now, Wimbledon turned professional and were voted into the Southern League in 1964, and it's fair to say that by the early 70s we were experiencing some rather difficult financial times, and particularly people like Sydney and Cyril Black, Bernie Coleman and the supporters club themselves dipped into their pockets and put a lot of money to keep football on this site, which was a great thing for me because I was still at the T-bar. And the lack of funds was particularly brought to attention when Dick Graham took over from Mike Everett, and we had no money to spend on new players. So by the time 72-3 came along, it was particularly bleak. That's not in any way a denigration of the players, but we just could not improve the side, and we could not improve the ground. We still had Bovril, which was important, and certainly particularly important to me. Now, I don't know why I've said this, and Dave has heard me say this a number of times and helped me out with it, but I actually stood in front of the T-bar. It was a 0-0 draw against Worcester City, and to be honest, the rain was coming down onto my head, down through my roll neck jumper, and I felt it was going right into my soul, and I was seriously miserable. I turned to my then little son Alex, and I've no idea why I said this, but I said, "Don't worry, son, one day here we'll play Man United in a league game." Now, I can't describe the look he gave me because there are ladies present, but suffice to say that it was on the 29th of November 1986. My little dream came true. My boy said nothing all the week up to that. Robson led the team out, the England captain, and out came Man United onto this pitch, and still he said nothing, and 15 minutes went by and still he'd said nothing, and then there was a lull in play for an injury, and what amazed me was that he'd been storing this up all the time. My little son Alex, now 6'3", said, "Okay, you got it right." And I said, "What?" in my best, teacher's voice, and he went, "You know damn well what I'm talking about." And we had a long chat with that. Dave McKnight sourced the original poster for that match, and I gave it to him for his last birthday with the little plaque saying, "One day, son, we'll play Man United on this site." So if he's got any memories with me when I'm gone, at least I was right once, despite what my 2 wives have said. Now, the bleakness was really turned around with the arrival of Alan Batsford, and I'm absolutely delighted that Maureen Batsford joined us today, and particularly after such a difficult time. Alan transformed everything at this club that was on the park and off the park. Suddenly people started to believe again. He joined up Walton players with the 7 professionals that were here at the time, and I'm delighted we've got quite a few of these guys here, which I'll come to in a minute. And he enjoyed history-making success with Wimbledon, defeating top flight Burnley at Turf Moor, the first time a non-league side had beaten a top flight side on their own ground, certainly since the 1920s. They took mighty Leeds United to 2 games, a replay at Smelhurst Park, and they proved their FA Cup pedigree 2 years later by taking Jack Charlton's Middlesbrough, not the most finesseful side, it has to be said, to a replay up at Ayresome Park. And if you, like me, have enjoyed Darlington at 1:15 in the morning, you'll know that there are prices to pay for loving football. The team won the Southern League title 3 years running, and finally on June the 17th, we were actually elected to the Football League at the expense of Workington. We're playing Workington in a couple of weeks' time in the trophy. Ironic. I'm delighted to say that today we've got some of our players here who were in that side, the great Alan Batsford side. One of our very first, certainly our first match in the Football League here was against Halifax Town. We drew 3-3. The scorer that day, the first goal, was Jeff Bryant, and Jeff Bryant's with us today. I'm also delighted to say that we've got with us Dickie Guy, we've got Ian Cook, and it's just so nice that the players that have graced the ground for us are here with us. They're not up the motorway, they're here with us. And as a fan, I hugely appreciate it. As we started, the crazy game spirit was being very much entrenched in our feelings, certainly on the terraces, and we had a rather good start to our time as we moved up the league. Dario Gradi took over when Alan resigned. We had people brought in then, during that period under Dario, Dave Besant, Alan Cork, Wally Downs, Glyn Hodges, etc., so many more. But it was laying that spirit again when Harry took over and Dario left, and certainly if you look at our first few weeks in the top flight of the Football League, and the gentleman from Barratts, if you'd like to put your hands up your ears, we beat Aston Villa, Leicester, Charlton, Watford, and we actually led the entire top flight for 1 week. That was one of the best weeks of my life. I went round everybody I knew, asking them where they were in the league and saying, no you're not, because I can't see you. And the nice thing was that we did doubles over Manchester United. That's a little known northern team. Chelsea, they're somewhere down there, short of money at the moment. Wins over Liverpool, West Ham, Newcastle and Tottenham amongst others. The jewel in the crown was to follow the next year. After Harry had gone, Bobby Gould and Don Howe took us along to Wembley on the 14th of May 1988. And I have to say, 4 of my boys that I either taught or within my Oakway group, Oakway Sports Club, actually came out into the park with that side, so I was very choked up from the start. And we had a fabulous team out there. We had Besant, Goodyear, Phelan, Jones, Young, Thorne, Gibson, Cork, Fashanu, Sanchez, Wise, Cunningham and Scales. And I'm delighted to say that John Scales has joined us today. 1988 FA Cup winner. Now, Laurie Sanchez and Dave Besant have sent their apologies for today. Big Bez is working in Spain and Laurie's working for 5 Live today. But I have to say, we made history then. Our first FA Cup win, the first penalty save in a cup final at Wembley, and the Amateur Cup and the FA Cup provided a unique cup double. Nobody has done that, nobody can do that apart from us, because there's no more Amateur Cup.